I think when you look at SAP and Broadcom, if you just wrote it down on a piece of paper without quarterly earnings, without annual earnings, without anything of that nature, I think anybody would walk away from that and say, why are you doing this to your client set? But there are pressures that every organization has, especially a publicly traded company like SAP and Broadcom. SAP, in my opinion, moving to RISE, moving to really a cloud-based model, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing for the environment. However, when you look at it from a pure business perspective, you have capabilities with your on-premise ECC setup that you're not getting much more to go into RISE. So we're really just SAP seems to be just picking it up, putting it in the cloud and going, this is going to be great. Problem with that is you've got in some instances, 10, 15 years worth of data, worth of business process that's been defined inside of SAP that you've got to figure out a way to get that, lift and shift it over into the new environment. And that's an extremely costly measure. So it does feel sometimes like SAP and Broadcom are being very tone deaf to their client set. And I could argue both ways, right? I do think the timing is incredibly aggressive. I think that making everyone go at once, doesn't feel right to me. I think there's a better way to go about it. Now, I don't run SAP and Broadcom. This is just my opinion, but there's a benefit that I think needs to be articulated much better. And I think there's a business need that needs to be articulated much better. And then I also think there needs to be some help in terms of how do we get from here to here? SAP on-prem ECC to RISE. How do we get there? And I don't think anybody's really helped in that scenario. I think there's a gap that service integration or systems integration houses have to figure out how to go do that, and they haven't done a lot of it. So when they're doing that, they got to bake their risk in there. And they don't know if they're going to be on time, they don't know if they're going to be on budget. But once you've made that decision to go to RISE, you're going to RISE. That means that train's left the station and you have to go figure it out. So if it ends up costing 10 times more to get there, you sort of got to pay it to get there. Now, the Broadcom thing's a little bit harder. When you actually look at that on a piece of paper, you can understand the business components of it, but absolutely the execution of that is shutting the door, slamming the door on a lot of clients. We've had clients come to us from a VMware perspective and say, they're charging me 10 times more than I was paying, and that's a pretty strong message from Broadcom. I really can't figure out the aggressive nature of that. But again, on paper, I understand where they're going with this. I just think it's the wrong execution of this. And I really hope it doesn't backfire on them. We people as a mass exodus from VMware to go to the competitors of VMware, of which there are many. And then that ends up eroding the overall footprint of VMware. Don't think that's going to happen, but it certainly feels like we're pushing people in that direction.